Welcome back to San Jose, California. We're here for the finals of the Flesh and Blood World Championship. It's an all-American fair here in the finals, so USA taking it home this weekend.
It's been a tough and get out.
Get out.
Out.
Get out.
Out. Unacceptable.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Perfect.
Oh,
Look,
so much better.
It's
so
been a
much better.
long, hard road for American Flesh and Blood to get to this point. The first two Pro Tours getting shut out, but now it is our moment in the sun, and we have two very, very worthy competitors battling for this title, the first world champion of Flesh and Blood. It is, of course, built different. Michael Hamilton trying to capture the magic that has made him a fixture of the Flesh and Blood scene throughout its burgeoning days of organized play, taking on the one, the only, Chris Iaali, trying to be the one to carry Briar to living legend. Stakes could not be higher.
Brian, there's been a rumor floating around the room all weekend long that Michael Hamilton actually has bald eagle blood flowing through his veins, and you've seen it in his play this weekend. He's been utterly amazing, playing out of this world, playing amazing, representing the United States of America. But on the other side, like you said, Chris Iaali playing that Briar deck that, if it wins, we're done. No more Briar, no more Rosetta Thorn. A lot of people at home are going to be rooting for that exactly, but the one thing I'm rooting for is I hope we get some USA chants today.
That would be nice. It would be nice to hear a little USA ringing through the venue.
USA.
Yeah. You know what else is really interesting about this Tannen is not only is there a ludicrous amount of money on the line, ludicrous pride at stake, being the first ever Flesh and Blood world champion, have some pretty unique prizes that these folks are fighting for as well. There you see the Iyslander Pro Tour champion card. Try and get a little less glare for you there. Absolutely beautiful. And of course, the other hero competing, Briar, Warden of Thorns. This would be the second Briar, Warden of Thorns to hit circulation. Of course, Matthew Falks taking down Pro Tour #2 with that champion. So
he's from UK, who cares?
yeah, the important thing is that these are coming back to the U.S. where they belong, in the hands of the deserving world champion that we will soon crown here in San Jose.
Absolutely. Can't wait to see this final. It's going to be amazing. They're playing for so much money. So much is on the line. Brian, how can you not be at least a little bit nervous?
I mean, I am shaking and I'm not playing this event. And you know what? I want to take a look at how our players got to this point, because we loaded up to this top 8 with an incredibly diverse field of heroes. We started things off with our Iyslander mirror, and we saw Michael Hamilton navigate that one masterfully, set up an arsenal lock on his opponent, Vietfam, never attacked throughout the game. On turn 2, Michael Hamilton won that game.
Honestly, one-of-a-kind game of Flesh and Blood there. I talked to Michael Hamilton about it afterwards. He's like, I've never been in this situation before. And if he said that, you know how much he practices for this. You know, before this, he talked about how into this event he was, how much invested he was, stepped away from his job, his full-time job, to focus on this tournament. Investment well spent.
Oh, working out pretty well. And then moving on to the semis, Michael Hamilton taking on Peitung Liao on Briar, Warden of Thorns. Already dispatching a Briar here today, and honestly, doing it pretty clinically. Like, certainly there were moments where that game was close, but on the whole, I think Michael Hamilton felt in control throughout the entire affair.
Yeah, he said it in his interview afterwards. He's like, you know, I got a little bit of practice here. He's doing practice in between rounds, getting games in, and you get a little more agency as Iyslander against Briar than sometimes you do against Fi, because you get sometimes priority at the beginning of their turn because of those embodiment of Earth going away.
Yeah, and on Christopher Iaali's side, we saw him fight first through Dromai in that slog of a matchup, beautifully covered by Doa and Matt Rogers. Almost an hour-long match with Fuad honestly putting on an incredible performance, fighting for every last second, but ultimately Christopher Iaali proving to be too much.
Yeah, he can go home with his head high to Italy as well. His family all supporting him there, put on a really great show. But Christopher Iaali has been running so good in this tournament, playing so well, because you have to get a little bit lucky as well to make the finals of a big event, and his draws were unreal in that semifinal against Dana Rutowski.
Speaking of a little bit lucky, there's nothing wrong with finding a good high roll, especially at the highest stake moment of your tournament thus far. Christopher Iaali found absolutely perfect opening hands, starting off with Channel Mount Heroic, following up with Force of Nature, and just an outpouring of damage from the start. Daniel Rutkowski really getting run over, never really finding a chance in that matchup. And all of that has brought us to this final matchup, Michael Hamilton versus Christopher Iaali. And why don't we take a look at Michael Hamilton's accomplishments thus far in Flesh and Blood. We talked about those absurd competitive event records we've seen from our top 8 competitors. How about 49-9, Tannen? Is that any good? Is that a decent competitive event record?
What does high score mean? That's what I want to know, because that's all I think about when I see this number. And you know what? It's just going to get better. All of those numbers are going to skyrocket out of the sea. Already was the #1 ranked player in the world in Constructed.
Yep.
I think #3 in Limited, if I
Correct.
remember correct. And those numbers are just going to go up, Brian.
Yeah.
This is going to be almost a Matt Rogers level of no one's catching me for a long time.
U.S. national champion, 2-time calling champion, looking to add world champion to his resume. And look, I hopped on with my boys over at Arsenal Pass earlier in the week. We were talking about, is the winner of this tournament the best player in the world? And I said, no, that's not really how this works. You know, there's a lot of variance in a tournament. The champion is a deserving champion, but just because you win the world championships doesn't make you the best player in the world. Unless you're Michael Hamilton. And then at that point, I'm calling it and willing to declare this guy the best flesh and blood player in the world, because his dominance has been unparalleled in the early stages of this game.
Brian, I don't want to hear it. That's naysaying in my book. I've already got him as the best player in the world, but that doesn't mean he automatically wins this final.
No, it does not. Why don't we take a look at Michael Hamilton's deck list here? And it is very similar to that list we saw serve him so well to become the national champion. That we kind of call it Bulllander, I believe is the popular term, leaning on things like Wounded Bull, Fiendel's fighting spirit to go ahead and hit those huge damage breakpoints, but simultaneously offering all this damage in the form of red ether ice veins and having that combo potential alongside those critical storm striders to just end the game out of nowhere on your opponent's turn.
Yeah, it's almost like one of the horror movie villains. You know they're coming, they're going really slow, and they're just walking behind you, but eventually it creeps up on you, and it's inevitable. If the life total gets too low, he's going to be able to take practically 3 turns in a row, do something in your turn, do something in his turn, do something in your turn again, and you're going to die.
No, I love that you use the word inevitable, Tannen, because that is how Michael Hamilton plays this hero. Slow, steady, methodical, never overextending, just an absolute masterclass in Iyslander play.
Yeah, and if we take a look at his opponent here in the finals, Chris Iaali, nothing to shake a stick at. Great tournament, all time. But before we get into that player, let's go ahead and take a look at Michael Hamilton and hear what he had to say when he made this final. Hey everybody, here's our first finalist for the Flesh and Blood World Championships. Michael, how does it feel?
That feels amazing.
Yeah. Look, I got to know, were there some nerves going through that game, maybe some nervous energy, some adrenaline? I don't know if I'd be able to keep my seat.
Yeah, absolutely. I was like reasonably ahead a lot of the game, and I was just like, oh man, I have to not do anything bad. I have to not fall into any traps or anything. And I was like very nervous the whole time.
Now, do you think that's going to continue into the final?
Definitely.
Now, I got to say, I'm not trying to add on, but you're playing for $100,000 in this next match, the Pro Tour winning card, and more importantly, the title of world champion. Has it sunk in yet?
I'm trying not to think about
Sure.
it. I'm just trying to think about Flesh and Blood, think about each game one at a time. And it is there. I know what we're playing for. It's so much, but I can't let that get to me or it's going to mess with me in the games.
Have you started thinking about the matchup ahead yet?
Yeah, so it's either Dan on Phi or Chris on Briar, right?
Right.
Yeah, and I think the Briar list is a little bit different, but very similar. So I've just been thinking that the practice for this round will help for that. I'm probably going to go get some reps into Phi while I'm waiting for the finals to start.
All right, tell you what, I'm not going to hold you back anymore. Let's let you get to the Wolf Pack and get those reps in. Michael, good job this weekend.
Thank you.
Michael
All I
Hamilton,
see there,
with that usual just joy, it seeps through when you speak to Michael Hamilton. He loves playing Flesh and Blood. Such a fitting champion for our game. Someone who has just embodied that really friendly, competitive spirit that we see amongst all of our players. A true fighter, but someone who respects his opponents and wants the best for everyone.
Yeah, a true American hero is what I want to call him.
Okay, yeah, I could go with that.
This weekend. Going to be a very fitting champion if he is the one that wins this year. I love his humility. I love his bashfulness. I love his preparedness. I just love the guy. He's great. He's going to represent America well, but standing in his way, Chris Iaali.
Yeah, and there you see that competitive event record, 61-10 30 thus far in competitive events. Nothing to sneeze at whatsoever. A very, very accomplished competitor. And honestly, has impressed the heck out of me here today. Just played so well. Never letting the nerves get to him. And I talked with Doa in the last round. It's so critical that you're able to manage your emotions. And for Michael Hamilton, he's been here a bunch of times. We kind of expect this from him. Christopher Iaali even mentioned when we were interviewing him, one of his first really good finishes in a card game. Been a card gamer for a very long time, but this is the first time where it really feels like he's broken through, has the chance to go ahead and stamp that really authoritative finish on his resume, but not showing any fear, just calm, collected, doing a great job managing the emotions.
I think that's a really, really good point, right? You know, Michael Hamilton's battle tested a little bit more here in Flesh and Blood. He's been through these big spots prior to this, you know, nationals, at callings, he's a two-time champion. Chris Iaali, maybe not the same pedigree, that same experience, but he seems so calm, cool, and collected, everything we've seen all day long. And honestly, I watched his match over in the feature match area to get here. Biggest grin on his face the entire time. Just looked cold-blooded to me.
Love seeing that. And look, it's easy to have a big grin on your face when you're starting the game with Channel Mount Heroic. Why don't we take a look at Christopher Iaali's list and see what has propelled him to victory thus far. And if you watch that last game, you know what this Briar deck is capable. Can go ahead and find that combination, Channel Mount Heroic, Force of Nature, and just run over the game. I don't know what exact configuration Christopher Iaali wants to go with in this matchup. I've kind of seen plans from Briar players be all over the place for the Iyslander showdown, particularly the Bowlander showdown. But look, I know there's no way Christopher Iaali got this far without taking down some Iyslander along the way. I'm sure has practiced this matchup in and out. Also an Iyslander player for a very long time. Played it at Nationals, played it in Lille, so very, very comfortable on this hero, and I have a feeling that experience is going to serve him well in this matchup.
Yeah, you can't state that enough. That experience definitely going to help him in understanding what he should be doing here. I think he's just going to go the American way. He's going to go big every chance that he gets. Channel Mount Heroic, pump up these attacks, try to get the game done as quickly as possible, make Michael Hamilton block with cards from his hand as much as possible this game, get out in front, and stay there. But enough about us talking about it. Let's hear what Christopher Iaali had to say about this matchup.
Our last finalist for the Flesh and Blood World Championships here in San Jose is Chris Iaali on Briar, and man, oh man, here's the thing, all right? So we're there watching the game. Matt Rogers turns to me, he says, he gets a glimpse of your hand, he says, Flake, buckle up, watch this. How did it feel getting, you know, some of that fire spice sent your way? You see that hand, do you know that it's just going to be absolute fireworks?
Yeah, I mean, even starting from turn 0, having like the ability to play a Channel Mount Heroic on the very beginning of the game before they even attack you, arsenaling an attack with Go again, and then seeing my next hand was like, I knew that I wasn't blocking anything on his turn, and like with all the hit triggers with Force Nature, that's why I chose to play Briar. Like when this deck high rolls like that, the aggro mirrors don't stand a chance, and it's pretty crazy timing. So.
Oh no, the timing was fantastic. Right out of the gate. Why not? Let's just make sure that we've got all the time in the world to finish this up. Now you're facing Michael Hamilton, arguably one of the best players in the world. We just watched Michael Hamilton treat a Briar player like a ball of yarn, batting it around. Do you have a plan against this Iyslander, and specifically, do you have a plan against Michael Hamilton on Iyslander?
Yeah, this matchup is going to be tough. Michael and I have a little bit of history. He actually beat me in the finals of the Battle Hardened in Lille, so hopefully I can get some revenge here, but we'll see how it goes.
All right, my man, get some rest. You got a few more minutes before we go to the finals of the World Flesh and Blood Championships. Any words that you want to, you know, send out to the world, some good karma?
Yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in, and wish me luck.
Beautiful. It's time for the finals.
And as you can see here, the finals is ready to go. Christopher Iaali on Briar, looking to get her to Living Legend. It's Michael Hamilton on Iyslander, looking to submit himself as a Living Legend.
Incredible stakes here, incredible drama. This is what we are here for, and we are ready to go down to our feature match area. There you see on the bottom side, it's Michael Hamilton on Iyslander. Up top, Chris Iaali on Briar. Is Chris going to find that same explosiveness that he found in the last game? Is it going to be a longer battle? There you see that fist bump. Love to see the respect from our players. So much positivity flowing off that fist bump. It unfocused our camera for a second.
Fist bump heard round the world, Brian, there. It looks like we're going to start this off with a Rune Chant token and an Arsenal. Very common turn one when you're on the play for Briar. Don't really want to give Michael Hem a chance to cycle any cards for free here. See more cards in his deck, maybe, find an ice card that he needs or blue that he needs. So very good start from Christopher Iaali here when you're actually going first. And talking about good starts, this is an Aether Ice Vein for Michael Hamilton.
Yeah, I would say this time the explosive start falling on the side of Christopher Iaali's opponent. Michael Hamilton, Aether Ice Vein kicking things off, looking to go ahead and put some of that first arcane damage on the board and critically get some of that disruption done. Take a card out of Christopher Iaali's hand, slow down the offensive options on the next turn.
Yeah, and you're going to see that Cold Snap gets revealed there, too. Another great card to put in the arsenal if you're Michael Hamilton. It's going to slow down that arsenal, possibly, if that's not the first thing that Christopher Iaali does. Give a Frostbite as well over there. So Christopher Iaali going to have to dance this turn correctly. Going to have to worry about that possibly coming out of the arsenal. This is going to be finished off this turn by a Waning Moon. That Cold Snap getting pitched for resources, though, here. So that's not something that Christopher Iaali is going to have to worry about.
Yeah, but that's a double-edged sword, Tannen. It's nice not to have to worry about Cold Snap, but what do you have to worry about? What does that mean for what Michael Hamilton did keep in Arsenal? In the last matchup Michael Hamilton played against Briar, we saw a string of Channel Lake Frigids that just completely blunted the offense of his Briar opponent. Christopher Iaali has to be fearing that same kind of start here. Going to kick things off on his turn with Sonata Arcanix. Spin the wheel a little bit. Let's see what it reveals. And we are going to find the dreaded 3 attack action. Open a whiff on that Sonata Arcanix, unfortunately for Chris Iaali. So we saw how Chris responded to a great opening hand. Let's see how Chris responds to a little adversity here. No refresh from that Sonata Arcanix. No arcane damage coming through.
Yeah, we've actually seen our Sonatas do very well in the top 8 here so far today. Most of the ones that I've seen have all been hitting and hitting really well. So one of the first big whiffs here early in the game. Christopher Iaali running so good in that match right before this. We'll see if he's going to get a little bit luckier in some of the other stuff. But not to be deterred. This is still a non-attack action, followed by another one by Nimble Mirror. It's going to make an embodiment of lightning, so it's still a pretty good turn setup here.
Yeah,
good consolation prize when you miss.
Absolutely. Look, we play the Sonata Arcanix here because it goes ahead and creates some go again, creates those non-attack actions. That's the critical part of this. Certainly you want to hit, but you can survive if you miss. And here's a fine start from Michael Hamilton. It's time for a Brain Freeze. Going to get that last card, exude confidence out of hand, put it back on top of the deck.
That is brutal, Brian. Such a well-timed Brain Freeze here from Michael Hamilton. Now, Brain Freeze, the blue one, it only gets stuff that costs 0, but I don't know if you've played the Briar deck before. That's most of the important cards.
A lot of zeros and a fine way to go ahead and fuel your Waning Moon for Michael Hamilton. It's Heart of Feyendel coming around, setting up that marker, if you will, knowing when we get to second cycle. And this will do Michael Hamilton a load of good, as well as buffing the life total just a little bit on maybe the next go-around. Of course, has to have a lower life total before the life gain kicks in.
Yeah, that 3 is going to go across over to Chris Iaali. He's going to be at 31. Now, he does get to keep that embodiment of lightning token, so possibly helping him out next turn. So not all was lost on that turn, but that was a big win for Michael Hamilton. Now, this is going to be a scar for scar, checking those life totals like we need to do. This is not going to have go again, but I think Michael's just fine with that.
0 for 4. I mean, that's really all Michael needs here. He needs to go ahead, present some damage, ask Christopher Iaali some questions, maybe take a card from hand, slow down that offense. That's completely fine, and it's going to leave Michael with plenty of resources to go ahead and arsenal and move into the next turn cycle that he wants to play, which is our turn cycle. Plenty of access to options on Christopher Iaali's turn in this case.
We're seeing an early block from a piece of equipment here. That armor coming out, that grass for the Arcanite.
Yeah, not a lot of on hits from the
right.
Iyslander deck. You can just go ahead and use these armor pieces when you get the chance to go ahead and blunt some raw damage. And a little bit of a block added on as well, Earthlord Surge, and its 2 defense. Going to go ahead and make a full block of that Scar for a Scar. But here's the question, what went to Arsenal for Michael Hamilton?
Yeah, that's a big question. You know, this is one of the things about Michael Hamilton's deck, this Iyslander deck that puts your opponents in such a weird spot. It's like you're saying, you know, you want to kind of block with the equipment there because there's some attacks you want to make sure that you get it in that you get in the blocks when you can, but also you have to walk this fine line of you kind of want your life total to stay below his as well, so some of his cards don't get that better buff. So sometimes it might be correct to let a little bit of damage leak here, but Christopher Iaali already had a lower life total, so kind of checks that box already.
Always a dance with life totals in Flesh and Blood. There are quite a few effects that can get benefits from having lower life totals, so you have to weigh your options carefully when you're deciding what damage you'll take from your opponent. Exude Confidence going to be the play here. That's going to get Go Again from Embodiment of Lightning, bring some arcane damage alongside with that rune chant, and also get buffed by that Earthlore Surge.
Yeah, and all of this is on the stack right now. Michael Hamilton looks like he's ready to pounce. We're going to have a card played from the arsenal. Looks like this is a Polar Blast. It's going to draw a card, and it's going to create a Frostbite on the side of Christopher Iaali here, possibly messing up the rest of there is a resource floating here for Christopher, but
yeah,
every little bit
on
counts
this as well. Cantrip, if you will. Going to go ahead and refill the hand. And it's time for Waning Moon activation. Going to go ahead and push 3 damage across.
everybody in the building really excited about that Waning Moon activation. I don't know if y'all can hear that in the background.
I love Waning Moon.
I go crazy for Waning Moon. You know, like the band T-shirts of the ones you really, really like? I need to get a Waning Moon T-shirt.
Ooh, that's a good, and
That's
Waning
a
Moon,
good band
excellent
name.
band name.
Yeah, absolutely.
we could
That's a
100%
banger
do
of a
that.
band name.
I would
There's
go
a
to
couple of good ones on the board. Stormstriders actually could be a pretty good one as
I
well.
would go to a Waning Moon concert
Ah,
tonight.
yeah.
Unfortunately, I'm already booked. Going to be heading out to the Guild House, checking that out.
A little bit of a judge conference here. Make sure the timing on everything. And let's be honest, it's Exude Confidence.
Again, I
Yeah.
mean, this card always causing trouble when it shows up in the feature match area. Has to go ahead, check very carefully what can be done.
This card might have the most judge calls in the history of Flesh and
I think
Blood.
that's fair.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely fair.
Brian, can you guys clean this up maybe a little bit?
This is before my time, Tannen.
We're gonna give it
I would have cleaned up Exude Confidence way before it hit the streets.
Oh, man, I wish we had some player mics right now. Something funny was just said between the two of them. And you know what? I absolutely love seeing this because these guys are playing for the difference of about $100,000 here in this final when you add on the champion card. And they're in good nature. They're hamming it up. They're laughing back and forth. They're having a good giggle.
Some of the highest stakes you could imagine.
It creates some
competitive
camaraderie
card
between
game.
you and your
Oh,
opponent when there's this kind of
absolutely.
thing going on.
Absolutely. It looks like Michael Hamilton has had his card returned to him. It was a Blizzard. Have a feeling we were checking on this Blizzard Exude Confidence interaction. 2 Frostbites now
Yeah,
delivered.
it's a weird thing. So there's a layering effect here that when Exude Confidence is declared as an attacker, it isn't actually yet attacking.
Correct.
So Blizzard can still be played targeting it when you normally can't because of the way Exude Confidence is later. You can only do instants, you can't do reactions.
Absolutely correct, Tannen.
Oh my, I actually knew some rules enforcement there. Nice. All my time talking to the judges is helping out.
And this Blizzard was paid for by Chris Iaali, and that means with these 2 resources floating, is going to have some options on the rest of the turn, be it Arcane Barrier, be it time to go ahead and get in there with Rosetta Thorn. All are on the table.
He's got that Findel Spring Tunic loaded up as well if he needs another resource here, because that is one thing that's going to happen to Briar. Briar, anytime you play this deck, I know that when I do, I look at my opening hand and I just, hey, how can I play everything? I can't play everything. Well, I'll pitch this one card and play the other 3. Not so fast against Iyslander. This deck's very, very good at giving you those tax effects like those Frostbites that we see that make things cost 1 extra and slow you down considerably. Michael Hamilton down to 35 here.
And I have a feeling Christopher Iaali is going to get taxed by those Frostbites, but maybe still find an end to this chain, possibly using them to pay for Frostbites and then getting a Rosetta Thorn activation with the help of that Faendal's Spring Tunic. And Hamilton is going to take quite a bit of damage here. First big shot from Christopher Iaali. And it came across as a pretty fair one, honestly. It wasn't any of those Channel Mount Heroic explosiveness. It was just good old make a big attack, swing in, follow up here. Rosetta Thorn 2-2. Maybe for one of the last times we'll ever see 2-2.
I was just thinking the same thing, Brian. Enjoy it while you can.
The iconic 2-2.
This might be one of the last times we get to say this. But Rosetta Thorn coming across here. Hamilton down to 27, Chris Iaali at 28. Getting at a lower life total could be pretty important. Looks like we got a sink below pitched here. Get a little bit of Arcane Barrier, going to clean up some of this. And it looks like the rest is going to come across. Michael down to 24, but this is power up, a good part of his deck now. Wounded Bull coming in a little bit harder. Scar for Scar is going to have go again.
Yeah, Michael Hamilton, a master at manipulating that life total to get exactly what he needs to out of his card. Get those buffs. So critical towards hitting those break points.
So I think we're talking about if we miss the trigger here to get the embodiment of Earth or not. And here's the funny part. If I'm Michael Hamilton, I'm considering just giving it to him. Even if the trigger is missed, sometimes you get the chance your opponent gets to put it on the stack or not.
Absolutely.
And there's a consideration to just letting them have it.
Now,
so
Hamilton
it
said no here, and
you
you see why it is a scar for a scar. I understand what you're saying, Tad.
Right, right.
There's certainly a window that opens up, but Michael Hamilton saying the damage is more important here. And for Christopher Iaali, you know, a mistake to be sure, but the stakes have never been higher. That is what the pressure of this World Championship is doing to these players. It is so hard to be surgically precise turn after turn after turn after turn for 3 days now, Tanner. We are on our 3rd day of competition. These players have played games across 3 different formats for the highest stakes they've ever played in their lives. You can't blame anyone for starting to wear down a bit.
I know I am, and I've only just been in the booth. And
Yeah.
I get to make coffee runs in between rounds. I get to
take
have
rounds
breaks.
off.
Yeah.
Like, it's been easy
I
for
went and
me, and
took
I
a
am
nap.
exhausted.
I went and took a nap because my hotel's right down the street.
Yep.
You know, because I'm an old man as well. But it does look a little bit of damage going to get through there. Christopher Iaali down to 25. That Tunic back up to 1. We're going to start to turn off like Gurnian's home.
Yeah, nice start here. Of course, does create another window for Michael Hamilton to act should he want to, but looks like this is going to resolve. I think I see that first channel mount heroic of the game potentially in hand for Christopher Iaali. Does he have the setup? Does he think this is the moment to go for it?
It does look like
time.
it is. And if you're going to become a world champion, generally you're going to have to climb some kind of mountain along the way. And this channel mount heroic going to be one of the cards that's most important in this matchup, if not the most important card in the entire matchup. As you can see, it gives all the attack cards, action cards you have +3. It's going to create an embodiment of lightning as well, going to go again to the next attack. So Christopher Iaali possibly get a little wide to start into an even bigger turn next turn, so we'll have to see how far he wants to go. This is a 7 power Swarming Gloomveil.
Yeah, buffed by its ability as well as that buff from the channel mount heroic.
I wish everybody at home could see us in the booth right now. We are absolutely surrounded by players wanting to catch every minute of this finals. The feature match area is packed. Nobody can see anything. There's so many people watching intently.
Tannen, I've never seen a crowd like this gather around an event before. It is absolutely absurd. People glued to find out who the first world champion of Flesh and Blood is going to be.
Starting to get a little claustrophobic, Brian. This is the best crowd I've ever seen. Best looking, best dressed. Easily the most amount of people I've ever seen crowding into the feature match area.
That's
and
just
our
you,
area.
Tannen, best dressed.
I mean, that's what are you talking about? That's what I wear every day.
I know.
This is how I walk around.
We do attract some attention when we walk down the street together.
Hey, man. I don't apologize.
Hamilton,
You're welcome,
again,
America.
Back in the tank. We've seen this stoic pose from Hamilton many times. Deeply focused.
Looks like we're going to respond here.
Sink below from Arsenal. So, look, sink below, fine card to have in your arsenal. Defense reacts out of there. Very, very good. The problem is no real disruption on a channel mount heroic turn that has already installed some go again. Is potential for quite a bit of damage to be done to Michael Hamilton. What is the last card in hand for Christopher Iaali? Can we get this combat chain a little bit wider? It looks like it's just going to be Rosetta Thorn is coming in for, again, that iconic 2-2. But the next turn of this game going to be so critical for Christopher Iaali. Can he finally leverage a channel mount heroic, using it to push through those tremendous blasts of damage? Or is Michael Hamilton going to be able to go ahead and find some defense? And you start looking at Michael Hamilton's hand. I see an Ether Ice Vein in hand. I see a Cold Snap potentially ready to fuse that Ether Ice Vein. Those are good disruptive elements and could very well lead Michael Hamilton to shut down Christopher Iaali's hand. Going to depend a lot on the composition of the hand Iaali draws on this turn.
Looks like the Spring Tunic was going ahead and used there to get a little bit of that Arcane Barrier, stop some of the damage. You can see why. Looking at some of those cards, I saw Scar for Scar as well. Hamilton's looking for one of those massive pivot turns here and possibly disrupting the hand. Like you said, I think it's so important that there's an Aether Ice Vein here because Hamilton needs to do anything he can to get cards out of Christopher Iaali's hand. Since he's at 25, he's not necessarily inclined to block ever here. With that Channel Mount Heroic in play, I think you're incentivized not to block. But if there's an Ice Vein behind this that's fused, he doesn't get a choice. But we're going to start off with that Scar for Scar. Let's check those life totals. Christopher Iaali at 25, Michael Hamilton at 18. This does have go again.
And that is going to open the window for potential Ether Ice Vein fused. Trying to disrupt Christopher Iaali here, trying to prevent him from just tearing Michael Hamilton to shreds. Should have the ability to go ahead and respond to that embodiment of Earth token with the Ice card if he wants to, will Michael Hamilton. So a really well sculpted hand, good timeliness for the disruption. Let's take a look if we can at Christopher Iaali's hand. I see a Nimbalism ready to make a super tall attack in conjunction with that Channel Mount Heroic. What do the attacks look like? That's what I really want to know, Tannen. How good are the threats?
I wouldn't know how many he's going to have left after this. There's an Amulet of Ice here as well.
That's a good point. And if I'm facing down a Channel Mount Heroic, you have to give some thought to go ahead and maybe cashing that one in. It is going to be a fusion with Cold Snap. Blue Ether Ice Vein coming through for 3 critically past the point of prevention. There is not AB3 available to Christopher Iaali, and this card is going to resolve and demand a card from hand.
It does look like the full 3 is going to come across here. So we're going to have the trigger. Here comes the discard. The nimbleism goes away. Definitely wants to keep those attacks in his hand as much as possible here. Knows that he's quite possibly losing 2 cards here.
Yeah, and it is time for that Amulet of Ice to get cashed in, leaving Christopher Iaali only with a 2-card hand, and Michael Hamilton with an additional Frostbite to further disrupt that hand. It's going to be really difficult for Christopher Iaali to do more than just attack once on this turn. There is that embodiment of Earth popping. Is this the moment where Michael Hamilton needs to respond and go ahead and get that Frostbite out?
Also, a Brother of Arms added to Michael Hamilton's hand this turn. Very big draw there in a turn where he's going to need to be defensive to just survive this Channel Mount Heroic. So we are over to Michael Hamilton right now at the beginning of the turn. This embodiment of Earth has a trigger. It's popping. It's going away. So this gives a window to Michael Hamilton. If he wants to give a Frostbite, he can do it now.
Brothers in Arms been so impressive for Hamilton throughout this weekend. And honestly, everywhere I've seen it, I saw it a bunch in Prism and Blitz. I think this card is an unheralded superstar of the format, actually. Any deck looking to spend resources on its opponent's turn should really be investing in some Brothers in Arms.
Could not have said it better myself, Brian. Absolutely love this card. It's just been huge the entire weekend. Life totals at 18-18. Michael Hamilton doing some clerical work here. Gonna check the ledger. See what he's got left. See what he's playing towards. A little something you could pick up at home if you're watching. You know, the cards in your graveyard do matter. You know that you're not going to be drawing those in the rest of the game.
Everything matters, Stern. Everything matters in Flesh and Blood. You just have to be on top of so many things. It's what makes great players like Michael Hamilton stand apart from the rest. Timing is everything. Here you see that Cold Snap coming out of Arsenal, giving Christopher Iaali the Frostbite token with only 2 cards in hand, sure to have a severe impact on output here.
No Arsenal card from Christopher Iaali is going to get frozen here, though, but this is going to give the Frostbite over to him. And he's going to be attacking for 7 here, but this is going to be the
the best case scenario.
Yeah, but this is going to be it. If you're Michael, this feels like a win, right? We're getting
100%.
Attacks from 1 card for 7 here instead of 2 cards for 13 or more.
100%. You did what you needed to do if you're Michael Hamilton. If you're Christopher Iaali, you did the best you could with a 2-card hand facing a Frostbite. There is no higher output available. Not what he was hoping for when that Channel Mount Heroic finally came to play, but something you have to kind of expect when you're taking on an Iyslander. This is what they do. They disrupt, they defend, they grind you to absolute dust, and you have to find a way to break out of that vice grip.
Yeah, and that's going to be the full block of 7 here. Ice Bolt. Also single. Sorry, only 6 here, I believe. And then we're going to have the Waning Moon activation.
Yeah, 3 more arcane damage coming through for Michael Hamilton. So Michael Hamilton winning a turn cycle where Channel Mount Heroic was in play. Did more damage than his opponent.
Yeah, absolutely huge win for Michael here in the span of this game. And now he's got the tip. It looks like to be a Brain Freeze with an Amulet of Ice.
More disruption, further slowing down
and
Chris Iaali's hand.
He's got a ton of options here. That's a Ravenous Rabble, an Exude Confidence, a Sonata Arcanix, and a Sow tomorrow. Brian, does any of this stand out to you as a spot that you can take something to really punch a hole in this hand?
Kind of a balanced hand. I think the best use of Brain Freeze in this matchup is often to go ahead and get rid of a blue card from hand to really restrict resources. So not going to be an option here. So tomorrow, of course, costing 1. But can take either Exude Confidence, can take Ravenous Rabble. That will slow down the turn a little bit. I think, and trust me, go with Michael Hamilton's choice. I would lean towards that Exude Confidence. There's just not a lot of ways for this to go wide, but
see, this is where I would go. I would go for the Sonata Arcanix because this actually disrupts the hand a little bit of the non-attack actions.
Okay, so can you do the Sonata Arcanix? I was concerned with an X cost. You actually had to find a 0 specifically cost. I know that has a theoretical cost of 0. I am going to assume with our judge staff ready at the
they're watching like hawks right there.
They're absolutely hovering over the match. I'm going to assume that is okay, and then I agree with that decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Just disrupts the hand enough through there. It's the differential card. Oh, another Sonata Arcanix on top. You see the Rye Grin from Christopher Iaali there. Importantly, too, that Spring Tunic up to 3 this turn. Extra resource is so important for the Briar player in this matchup. Every little bit counts. You get to kind of negate at least one Frost token. Looks like the Amulet of Ice is going to get played here. It's going to give that Frostbite over. You're probably here. You can keep this.
Yeah, this turn pretty telegraphed for Chris Iaali. Does have a lot of resources available here with that blue Sotomaro in hand. That'll go ahead, load up that Exude Confidence, ready for action.
Yep.
Embodiment of Earth going to come through off that damage from the Ravenous Rabble.
What does Christopher want to do behind this? Still got that Sotomaro. Does he want to sequence the rest of this turn?
Certainly is a possibility that you just want to do something like unjuiced Rosetta Thorn and set up an arsenal for the next turn. I could understand damage in large bursts much better than just a steady trickle of damage against these Icelanders. They can deal with a steady trickle. They'll find a way through. If you find that big explosive turn, that's how you pull ahead against someone like Michael Hamilton.
Yeah, still got that Exude Confidence. I think he's considering if he wants to play it this turn or not. It does look like he is going to do that. He has to give up the Sotomaro here, and this is why I kind of wanted to go after the Sonata Arcanis here, because it just puts him in the situation where if he wants to make extra resources turn, he's going to have to give up the extra card from saying the Spring Tunic's not going to be enough.
Makes sense to me, Tannen.
Now it looks like we do have a pump here. That's pretty nice here for Christopher Iaali as well. It's going to use that Spring Tunic plus the 2 floating resources to make that 6 instead of 4. Hamilton taking quite a bit of damage here this turn, but you got to know he's usually got a clap back ready to go.
Yeah, decent turn though from Chris Iaali. Does a good job finding some damage. You see Hamilton with a Hypothermia in hand. That certainly could have influenced some blocking decisions. Insidious Chill as well, and I believe we're looking at another Ether Ice Vein for Michael Hamilton. The perfect mix of disruption and damage. Red Ether Ice Vein going to be fused with the Hypothermia. Now Chris knows about that, but still a very, very impressive effect against Briars.
This is the exact turn that Michael Hamilton needed to get back in this game. This Aether Ice Vein is going to deal some damage. It's going to trigger a discard effect over to Christopher Iaali. It's going to interact with his hand, and then there's going to be that Hypothermia into the arsenal after this, and that's going to get played at the beginning of Christopher Iali's turn. And we're going to get a second card here, too. That Amulet of Ice is going to get cashed in here.
Yeah, everything Hamilton does in this matchup is very aggressive. He wants to use his resources as soon as possible. Looks to use that Tunic as soon as possible. Looks to go ahead and crack those Amulets of Ice as soon as possible. Does not want Iaali to go ahead and build up resources and put together those really, really dominating Briar turns.
Yeah, now, if you're Michael, do you feel like you've actually retaken the game into your side of the board here after that last turn?
I'm feeling good if I'm Michael. Look, nothing about this game is decided, but the game is sort of going to plan for Michael. Has the disruption building up, has that life total ticking down. Now, I do want to point out, getting a little Hypothermia choked here is Michael. Has one in arsenal, one in hand, so you prefer to space those out a little bit more. And Flex not going to be affected by that. So this is just going to be a 0 for 4. And looks like Chris Iaali is trying to move to the next turn with an arsenal. What is big in Hamilton's hand is a Channel Lake Frigid. And with the Hypothermia to pitch to pay for that, that will last for a turn and really put a wrench into Chris Iaali's next turn. Has to see if he can put together one of those hands that is sort of Channel Lake Frigid proof. There are some. You just need to draw the right mix of cards. It's all a big die roll at that point. And we talk about Flesh and Blood being a lower variance game, but variance rears its head in other ways with the combination of your color, of your pitch stripe in hand, by the order you draw your cards. All of those things matter so much, and you have to know how to play through them. Hamilton looking to sort of mitigate a little bit of weird timing here alongside these Hypothermias. It looks like it was a Blizzard in hand, so going to go ahead, pitch that Blizzard to pay for the Waning Moon. Get some damage done.
Looks like he went ahead and took the 4 as well after dealing 3 with his Waning Moon.
Life
so
total's
Christopher
getting
down
low.
to 8. I believe Hamilton's down to 7 here. See if that gets updated. There we go. Yeah, down to 7.
Yeah, and we expect Hamilton to arsenal this Channel Lake Frigid on this turn.
Oh, this is an Enlightened Strike, actually. Okay.
Oh, all right,
Excuse
never
me.
mind. It looks like Channel Lake Frigid headed to the bottom here, and Enlightened Strike going to be the play for Michael Hamilton. Again, when I disagree with Michael Hamilton, listen to Michael Hamilton.
Yeah,
Don't worry about what I'm saying.
we're generally proven wrong.
Yep.
And so this is going to be attack for 7 here because no go again needed, no draw card needed here. So this is most of Christopher Iaali's life total, and he's got to be feeling it here. He's got to be getting worried. We're getting very close to deciding the World Championships here. The sweat has got to be coming off the brow just a little bit. You've got to be worried that if your life total gets a little too low, those Stormstriders are looming.
Tannen, we talk a lot about presenting lethal. That means something a little different in Iyslander. You don't actually have to present that lethal swing. What you want to present is just a low enough life total where you're never safe again, where you're at risk of just being Metacarpus nodes, Stormstriders, Waning Moon completely out of the game.
And you just said it about never being safe again. I actually think Christopher Iaali's in that spot right now.
It's very close. Any more damage is there. I agree with you.
Yeah, I do not think he's safe at all. Any damage through 7 is the magic number for Iyslander to where you can get, say, play something for 4 with the Stormstriders and Metacarpus nodes, activate your Waning Moon, game over. So if any of the damage comes through here, you're looking at a big problem for Christopher Iaali because he knows that a blue is going to be in that arsenal. Michael Hamilton's going to go up to 4 cards. He's going to be able to play the blue, activate the Waning Moon, activate the Stormstriders. He's got that Spring Tunic to help out with the Metacarpus nodes, and then fling a, some kind of burn spell, some kind of arcane spell over to Chris Iaali, and that's the World Championship. So Christopher Iaali lining up a block here because he really needs to worry about this life total.
Yeah, it does find 6 points of block with the help of that Embodiment of Earth. 1 damage going to leak through. Christopher Iaali falls to 7.
That 1 is so important, Brian.
Hamilton just going to go ahead and Arsenal. And what is the Arsenal card for Michael Hamilton?
If it's a blue, there's a chance we have a new world champion. We'll have to see. So Embodiment of Earth is going to pop here. Let's see. Does Michael Hamilton want to do anything in response?
2 Ether Ice Veins in hand.
Oh, he's got 2? Okay, so maybe he does play a little more defensively this turn. Looks like a Sonata Arcanix from Arsenal. And so every single time, Michael's going to be like, every time you play something, hold on. I might have a response here. But there's also the chance, if Michael's trying to kill him this turn, I think he's going to let him keep doing things.
Yes,
he's going to want cards out of his hand.
You want cards out of hand, for sure.
Michael really in the tank here, thinking about the Sonata Arcanix. Does he want to respond here? Because this does represent an extra card in Christopher Iaali's hand as well.
2 cards in hand for Iaali. AB1 available.
Look, I love this
dichotomy.
I love this. They're still laughing. They're still having a good time. There's $100,000 riding on this next turn.
Emeritus
Oh my God,
That's
is this it?
Huge
I think
play.
this is it.
Metacarpus node going to go ahead, pump that up. More damage being offered to Chris
for
Iaali.
5.
Chris pitches a blue. Time for AB. 1 prevented, but Iaali's going to fall to 3.
Is this it, Brian?
Hamilton has Waning Moon at the ready, has that frosting, pitches, activates Stormstriders.
This is it.
2 resources floating.
There's an
Ice Bolt in hand. There's the Ice Bolt. Metacarpus node activates again, and he gets the fist bump, and Michael Hamilton is the world champion of Flesh and Blood.
Look at that smile, Brian. It's worth $100,000.
What a performance by Michael Hamilton, and love to see that sportsmanship from Chris Iaali. A round of applause, and a well-deserved round of applause for the best Flesh and Blood player in the world. I'm done, Tannen. We don't have to talk about it until next year. Best Flesh and Blood player in the world, resides in America, built different. Michael Hamilton adds another one to the trophy case.
You know what? I might have to go over there, give him my jacket, give him my glasses. He's earned it.
Yep.
He can probably afford it now as well. This doesn't come cheap. These are pretty expensive in America. I don't know if you've seen it, but let's talk a minute. Let's be serious. Christopher Iaali, what a weekend for him.
Yeah, and nothing to be ashamed of if you're Chris Iaali. Incredible play all weekend long. And you hear one more round of applause for our competitors going up through the hall. I'm telling you, this crowd gathered around is massive. I have never seen anything like this in a TCG before, and you understand why. That match played on a razor's edge, played masterfully by Michael Hamilton.
I don't think you could say any other word when describing Michael Hamilton, especially just if you see this top 8. It's a microcosm of how good he is, of how well he plays.
Bring it over here. You're already a human flag. I need to represent for my country. Nice to be proud of an American right now.
Look, starting with that mirror match here in the top 8 of Iyslander, Michael Hamilton, absolute masterclass. Semifinal.
Incredible. And a game that's never been played in Flesh and Blood before. Finds a new game to play against his opponent.
Unreal. And here in the top 8 of the World Championships, and that semifinal, I think, Flake called it, played with him like a ball of yarn. You got to bat him around.
Just clinical all the
timing.
time.
And you can see it. Every single time you watch Michael Hamilton play, the play is so tight. It's so good. It's so, I use the word methodical. You can see that game. It's just the pacing is there every single turn. It's almost like his heartbeat, right? It's just like, hey, I'm gonna play this card, then I'm gonna play this one, and everything's just at the same speed. He's under control. The emotions are in check. The focus is there. The eye is on the prize, and he's your world champion.
I'm honestly kind of speechless with how dominant Michael Hamilton has been. It's almost unbelievable you could be that good at this game, just time after time, finding ways to win, no matter what the situation, finds the best deck over and over, in multiple formats over and over, proving himself to be an Iyslander master. Played Iyslander every single one of the 19 rounds he played. Tells you something about that hero, and you see this here Pro Tour champion card. I can't think of a better person to bear it than Michael Hamilton. Absolutely earned that one.
I can't think
spades.
I can't think of a better person to bear the title of world champion than Michael Hamilton as well. Proud American. He's the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be so far in this game. Just unreal performance for just the last year.
Yeah.
I think, I go back to U.S. Nationals last year where he won. I call it the secret calling. We were covering Nationals. He wins that calling. He's won another calling since as well. He's got a national championship attached to that. Now he's done up on every single one of those by becoming the world champion.
It really feels like Michael Hamilton has defined my own relationship with Flesh and Blood.
Yes.
Since I've been calling these events, it's just been the Michael Hamilton watch. What's he going to do next? What event is he going to win next? We went to, for one of my first events, I was at the call in Indianapolis. Michael Hamilton rebuilt Bravo, did it in a way no one had ever done before, and was able to take it to victory. Comes back at U.S. Nationals, rebuilds Iyslander, makes it a brand new deck, makes it the most threatening deck on the scene, and now continues to just iterate, to tweak that Iyslander formula to find absolute perfection one more time.
Absolute perfection has been found by Michael Hamilton, your world champion. We're going to take a very, very short. I guess we're actually going to be staying live.
All right,
And
I'll hang out all day.
I think you're getting kicked out of the booth. Though.
Okay.
We're waiting for Michael Hamilton.
Oh,
to
no,
make
never
his
mind.
way.
I'm now happy.
Okay.
He deserves my seat entirely. I'll leave the flag here for him as well. I mean,
please.
I just think it's very, very hard to establish yourself as an iconic figure of a game, especially a game as young as Flesh and Blood.
Yourself.
Okay, well, you're iconic for other reasons, Tannen, and I'm not going to tell you about them. Just assume they're good. But we're only about a year into the OP life of Flesh and Blood, and this man is already creating a legend around himself. And, hopefully this game has a very long run. Hopefully we're doing this for another 20, 30 years, and you wheel me out here to commentate these matches when I'm old and grayer than I already am. But the legend of Michael Hamilton is never going to disappear from this game. He is just a focal point at this point, and couldn't happen to a better guy. So humble, so thoughtful, so good at Flesh and Blood, and a man who just loves the game so much. He quit his freaking job to go and practice for the Flesh and Blood World Championships. That level of dedication, could it be rewarded any more, Tannen?
I don't think it could, Brian. I think you just hit the nail right on the head there. And we're going to have Brian in here. Sorry, we're going to have Brian leave here and have Michael Hamilton come into the booth here in a second when he's done getting through the swath of adoring fans he's having to fight his way through as the world champion. But I think let's take a look at how Michael Hamilton became the world champion. Let's bring up the graphic of that top 8 and see that final name is highlighted.
Highlighted in gold, baby, and deservedly so. And you know what? I'm out of here, Tannen. There's only one person everyone wants to hear from right now. It's not me. I'm going to leave you to talk to the champ, Michael Hamilton.
Everybody at home, give me 1 second. We're going to get Michael Hamilton in here and hear it straight from him. Here, Iaali wants to talk. Let's see. We're getting Michael Hamilton here. Give me just 1 second. We got to get him set up. But as you can see, running through this top 8 like no one else. All right, I think we're ready to have the champ here. Michael Hamilton, world champion. How's it feel?
It feels really good. I am still in shock, honestly.
I think a lot of us are still in shock with just, it seemed easy. I know it wasn't, but it seemed easy. You curved up these Briar players with just authority here in the top 8. And then let's start with that first match with a one-of-a-kind game in Flesh and Blood. You talked to me about it afterwards. You were like, I've never been in this situation before. What was going through your head when you saw that go into the arsenal?
Yeah, so when I brain freezed and saw the sync below, I paused for a while thinking if I was waning mooning there, because I'm like, what if he pitches it? What if he arsenals it? What happens in the different scenarios? And I'm like, wait, what if he arsenals the sink below? And my mind, the gears start turning, and I'm like, I could just never attack, and he won't have an arsenal for the rest of the game.
Yeah. When it happened, again, I don't take anything from you. When it happened, I jumped out of my seat with my hands on my head. I was like, oh my God, he's never going to attack him this game, and he's going to die with the same card in his arsenal as he started. Now, your second round of the top 8, playing against another Briar player, it just seemed like you always were in control. You were always dictating the terms of engagement and when are things going to happen, and that kind of happened here in the finals. Do you feel that's kind of how that matchup plays out for you?
Yeah, for the most part. I've played a lot of this matchup with Zach Button from the Wolfpack. He loves Briar. We spent 2 Saturdays where we spent like most of the day jamming Briar versus Iyslander, and that's how most of the games go. But like the games you lose are the games where they get a channel mount heroic down and you don't have the disruption for it, and they get the full turn, or your disruption lines up poorly and they just pitch 2 earth cards to keep it around a third turn, and then you just die.
And that seemed like we saw that in the exact finals. You know, he had a channel mount heroic around for 2 turns, but he only got 2 attacks off of them, and they weren't really that impactful. Now, there was something that you told me coming into this top 8 that kind of set me back a little bit. It gave me a little bit of pause. You talked about how you stepped away from your job before this about a month ago?
About a month ago.
About a month ago, to really take this seriously and really put in the time and effort, which, by the way, I don't want to see what you not taking it seriously looks like when you're still winning callings before this, but walk me through that decision, and then you've got to feel really good about it now after bringing home this trophy.
Yeah, absolutely. So things have been a little bit shaky at my job for a little while, and after doing so well in Flesh and Blood this year, and I've been very fortunate to do as well as I have, I was financially in a spot where, like, if I take the time off and I come to Worlds and I bomb out, don't make any money or anything, I am fine. I can go back to work. It'll be great. Everything's great. But I really wanted to give it everything I could for Worlds, and after, I think it was Nationals specifically that, like, really motivated me to do that, was after winning Nationals with, like, a very out there deck, I guess, at the time.
Yeah, something where you really put your name on the map, like as a deck builder, right?
Yeah.
You know, you had done it kind of before, but nothing like this to this extent.
But after that, I really wanted to see what I could do if I spent all of my time, or a lot of time, like treat it like almost a full-time job where I was spending 30 hours a week or so playtesting Flesh and Blood, and it really paid off, I guess. I don't know.
I think you did okay, right? You're $100,000 richer. You also, I don't know if you've seen this one yet, but you get this bad boy. Or sorry, this bad girl, actually.
Wow.
I know, right? Isn't this beautiful?
That is very beautiful.
Yeah, I was going to say, so you do get a trophy here. We're going to have that just a little while. We're going to get to that ceremony. You do get this. I know you've mentioned Zach Bunn a lot. You've mentioned the Wolfpack. Is there anybody else you want to shout out? Anyone else that kind of helped you get here? Because, you know, it takes more than one person, right, to get through all this?
Yeah, so shout out to my best friend, Roger Bodie. He wasn't a huge part of my Worlds preparation, but that's because he wasn't coming to Worlds. But, like, leading up to all the events all year, I've been playing with him a bunch, talking with him a bunch about Flesh and Blood. We talk on the podcast, the Manor podcast, all the time about Flesh and Blood.
Make sure you check out that podcast. It's got a world champion on it. He's pretty good.
And so Roger's my best friend. He got me into Flesh and Blood, and I definitely would not be here without him. So shout out to Roger.
Yeah. Roger, you're a real one. Good job.
Yeah.
Now, when do you think it's going to sink in? I'm assuming after this you're going to go get a good dinner, maybe a night's rest. I'd be exhausted. But do you think it'll take a few days, or has it already started to hit you that you are the representative for Flesh and Blood? You are the world champion.
Well, now that you say it, it's
I know, right? It has to now. Yeah.
It wasn't until then. It'll definitely take a little while for everything to sink in. I don't really know what to say.
Sure, well, that's fine. You know what? You're a world champion. I don't want to take up any more of your time. You've got a lot of people waiting for you to shake your hand, give you high fives, give you pats on the back. Great job. Really good job here this weekend, Michael. Everybody, we're not actually done with the coverage. Don't go anywhere. We're going to be taking a short break, and we're going to come back with coverage of the calling if we can get that. So don't go anywhere. We'll be right back with more Flesh and Blood.